Hi, folks. Dr. Carter here with more Emily Dickinson poetry for you. We have 3 left, and I'd like to offer you an explication and reading of these poems now. We have "The soul selects her own society," "The brain is wider than the sky," and "There is a solitude of space." One of these poems may connect back to that influence of the Romantics, like I thought there was, obviously, and there's a certain slant of light. And some of these may also speak to that reputation that Dickinson had as being a recluse. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with "The soul selects her own society." 3 stanzas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines, some of them with only 1 or 2 words. The soul selects her own society. Ooh, listen to that. Is that assonance or alliteration? The soul selects her own society, then shuts the door to her divine majority, present no more. Unmoved, she notes the chariots pausing at her low gate, unmoved, an emperor be kneeling upon her mat. I've known her from an ample nation, choose one, then close the valves of her attention like stone. So Dickinson is often a little bit of a mystery. We've got this notion of chariots and emperors and gates, all, by the way, capitalized, vowels and stone, one capitalized as well. And I'm wondering how we might interpret this. One way is to suggest that this is Dickinson's interpretation of the phrase, "the heart wants what it wants," and that's all it wants. All right. We also know that Dickinson had a small number of close friends, and while she was social, particularly early on, she became less interested in social scenes as she got older. I think, and maybe it's because I am one of the types of people who doesn't need a lot of close friends. I like having like a small handful of people I can go to over and over again. Of course, maybe it's burdensome to those people. Maybe I overburden them and should spread my network out a little bit more, but I'm not really a social butterfly. So in that way, this poem speaks to me as someone who says, you know what, I like who I like. I want to spend time with who I want to spend time with. And then I'm absolutely okay with shutting myself off from everybody else, okay? In terms of at least having deep, meaningful relationships too. And that's not necessarily always healthy. And we don't know that it was necessarily healthy for Dickinson, but we do know that she did sort of tread that line between being a social butterfly and having a few close friends as she sort of became that recluse, or so we're often told. So the soul selects her own society. The individual decides whom they want to hang out with, right? And then shuts the door to all that other social stuff. No more Twitter, no more Facebook, no more the gram, and know what you all call it? Can I make myself feel any older? All right. Just her small number of friends, okay? And so when she talks about the divine majority is capitalized here too. I think she's being a little tongue-in-cheek. She's being a little cheeky. She's being a little saucy there. Divine, all right, not for her. All right, the being within the broader notion of the world, that's not for her. She likes her own cloister. Even though chariots, the emperor himself may be coming to see her, all right, or to be trying to move her to be more social. Nope, that's just not how this speaker works. And by the way, the soul is a her here, right? So me using the gender pronoun is appropriate given what the poem tells us. I've known her from an ample nation, choose one, then close the valves of her attention like stone. Okay, so one person, one good friend, one confidant, and then that's it. that's what I think of this poem as meaning, as being sort of a reflection of meditation, and the heart wants what it wants, but sometimes it only wants that. And the rest is possibly distraction. Moving on, the brain is wider than the sky. Now, I think we may also have her reaching into that well of American romanticism here with the God, people, and nature triumvirate, the oversoul being in the middle, or that transcendence, that transparent eyeball are being wrapped up in this too. Let's just see. This 3 stanzas, 12 lines again. The brain is wider than the sky. For put them side by side, the one the other will contain with ease, and you beside. The brain is deeper than the sea, for hold them blue to blue. The one the other will absorb as sponges, buckets do. The brain is just the weight of God, for heft them pound for pound, and they will differ, if they do, as syllable from sound. So this might be a reflection on cognition, on awareness, okay? Within that 3-part cog, what is the most important part? Well, if people can't understand the capacity of nature, then the power of nature breaks down. If people don't have a belief in spirituality or God, does the notion of God break down as well? All right, so she seems to be suggesting that within this 3-pronged structure of romantic identity, it is the mind that is most important. It's the human element that is most important. You know, nature and religion are nothing without man's understanding or belief in it. All right. And it is the mind itself that is even more expansive than nature in and of itself, or the idea of a spirituality in and of itself. So the brain is wider than the sky, more encompassing. The mind is where it's at for Miss Dickinson. One last poem. There is a solitude of space. There is a solitude of space, a solitude of sea, a solitude of death. But these societies shall be compared with that profounder sight, that polar privacy, a soul admitted to itself, finite infinity. So solitude, being with oneself. Again, Dickinson is an excellent poet to be studying in the age of COVID-19 because we are having to sort of make ourselves little Dickinsons and cut ourselves off from larger aspects of society. And Dickinson seems to be self-aware with this poem. A solitude of space, a solitude of sea, a solitude of death. Are these all different ways to be alone? Alone in a certain space, alone in the middle of the ocean, and of course, alone in your grave. But these can be compared with that profounder side, the polar privacy, a soul admitted to itself. So a soul, an individual who has chosen, all right, to self-distance, to be on its own. That is where maybe the largest, most important, or most interesting solitude is, okay? Not in space, not in the sea, not in death, but in choosing to be alone. Right? And she calls it a polar privacy. And I don't know if P-O-L-A-R there means polar like the poles, and it's supposed to be like a cold privacy, a cold isolation, a chilly sort of like mean sort of Grinch-like disconnect, or polar as in polar opposites. So I don't know if she's talking about making a choice that is cold or polarizing in that regard. I don't know. But she does end here with that finite infinity, a soul admitted to itself, that finite infinity. And we got that whole idea of sort of a cosmos filtered into the granular or the infinitesimal. And one of the other poems that we read when we were studying Dickinson, and so you'll just have to look at the other videos and see if you can find that. But this is an interesting paradox, the finite infinity. So is she talking about one's own sense of the world versus others' sense of culture in the world? And her understanding, or the individual's understanding, makes up one finite infinity, right? And that's what she's chosen to focus on, as opposed to all of the others that might be out there. Um, is she saying that social separation feels like isolation that is particularly cold? And so that would take on a different nuance as to suggest that instead of the speaker self-distancing because she wants to, but that maybe isolation has come to her, right? She would like to be out in the world, but peers or other circumstances have forced her to become sort of an outsider. And so is it basically sort of a sad song of loneliness that she's singing here? Even so, I think she's saying that even if that is a strong presence in one's life, all right, that one has to deal with, being or forced to be separated, I think she's still saying that it's still not as strong as chosen isolation. But I could be wrong. I do know for sure that she is right when she says there is a solitude of space. All right, folks, that's all of the Emily Dickinson poems that we're going to work on together. Look for Google Classroom work to pop up regarding Emily Dickinson, and I hope you'll enjoy it, and I hope you've enjoyed the videos as well. Take care. Bye-bye. Stay safe. Stay healthy.